The following is a presentation of Muddy River News.
It was in my face. It's like this.
It was like Bozo. Yeah. So I have my Mizzou hat and my Mizzou glass in honor of our guest. So
Are we rolling? The red light's not on. Is that an issue?
that we don't have the red light anymore.
Okay.
Remember, because we moved everything over here and we produce everything through the board now.
Gotcha.
So it's different.
Just double checking.
Yes.
You're talking to me like I'm some sort of dumbass right
I'm
now.
not.
He's like slow
No,
and steady. Okay.
no,
All right.
No.
Okay.
No.
Are we started?
Yes.
Are we rolled? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
That's how this works.
Yeah. Happy
So-
podcast day.
Yeah. So you wanted to talk a little bit in honor of our guest, and I'm not going to use the word old, but former people who have been in this media market and what they might be doing or where they might be. That was something we had discussed. I'm in contact with a couple of them, and I'm also in contact with a few of my friends who we were all at Mizzou with, and but yeah, those people you would know. Like, for example, a guy that our guest and I went to school with, Mark Lodato, is now the dean at the Newhouse School of Journalism or Communications at Syracuse University. And that's actually a big deal because Syracuse is a really good
Yeah.
I couldn't tell by
journalism.
I know. I was like, are you being a
communications
smart
school.
ass?
No,
or you're being
it's,
like, you're giving kudos.
Yeah, Mark Lodato is his name. Great
I like that
guy.
name, Lodato.
And,
It's a good
very
name.
Italian. He and I went to a Super Bowl together in New Orleans
Yeah?
for our senior trip, our senior year.
But that was no fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. That's a story for another day. But
Yeah.
and he anyway, great guy. And then, but of the people that we talked about, I came back home, so to speak, to work for KHQA in July of 1990. And one of my first news assignments was to interview Garth Brooks, who like nobody had ever heard of, but he was locked into this contract to play at the Adams County Fair.
You're that old?
long
Holy
ago.
shit, Bob.
How long
Okay.
ago?
That would have been July of 1990. And I knew him. I mean, I was obviously growing up.
I was
and
9.
Being a country guy, I was like, oh yeah, he's great. He's got this great hit. So,
What was his great hit at the time?
was it the dance? Well, this was just before Friends in Low Places. I think the dance might have been the
Dance.
first
It's a
song,
great
or Unanswered Prayers, one of those. But anyway, Amy Holm was her name at the time, was the reporter, and I went out and did camera for her because I was like, yeah, I know Garth Brooks. This would be great. So, but I think one of the things that it was just such a different world back then, with because obviously this didn't exist, the internet didn't exist,
Right,
cell
right.
phones didn't exist.
Yeah.
Reporters had to go out and do stories, and if you had to talk to somebody back at the station, you had to find a payphone, or if you were at somebody's office, hey, can I use your phone to call the station? I mean, it was you had to be a lot more enterprising. You really had to kind of have your stuff together and have everything figured out. There was no umbilical cord. The cell phone's kind of an umbilical cord to the newsroom now.
Sure.
But back then it was just like, go get the story. Just bring me back a story.
Yeah.
We need a story. We got to fill X number of minutes in this news hole. Go do it.
Something out of the movies.
And that's how it worked. I
Yeah.
mean, you went out and you did your stories, and we all wore a lot of hats. I mean, when I first started, I did news and sports and weather. I was a weather guy. I've never done weather before, but I was doing weather on the weekends, and I found out quickly.
Did you have to do like the green screen?
I did.
God,
I did.
I
the
can
green
imagine
screen.
like, I'd be like,
But the cool thing about that was, and as I was taught, because I actually talked to some of my friends back at KOMU in Columbia, where our guest and I went, and was like, how do I do this? Like, just know the states. If you know the states, you're fine. High pressure, low pressure, as long as you can say, hey, this high pressure is coming out of Massachusetts, and it might affect the
Coming out of
weather
Texas.
on the eastern seaboard, and
coming out over here, California
Yeah.
somewhere. Oh no, I would totally screw it up.
No, but it
Totally
was
screwed up.
so yeah, and you had to like be able to like look at the map and do this and stuff.
Yeah,
So,
no.
and then I had to start. I went from doing weekends to having to do the morning show, and I was not a morning person at all.
What are we talking? What time?
I had to be in the office like 4:30
Oh.
in the morning to
Yeah.
get ready for TV.
Cuts
late
into
night.
your drinking time.
Well, and also it was like, I was doing the weather and I was co-anchor. I mean, I wasn't producing the newscast, which is a whole different animal and takes a lot more work. I just had to sit there, show up and read, but I started to like load my weather stuff in. And it was a lot. But the nice thing was you were done at noon. So then, when the weather was nice, you could hang out the pool, you could do whatever. But it was, and then when I went to do radio in the mornings, it was still like the same thing, and it was just really hard for me to get acclimated to that. But as far as like the people who were my contemporaries back then,
Like the
along with our
mainstays,
guests, Carol Sowers, she was the news anchor. Carol Sowers and Steve Feldy were the primary anchors at KHQA when I was there, and I think Shan Whiston and Ralph Bristol were the primary anchors at WGEM. And
where was Les Sachs?
Les was gone, but then Les came back after Ralph left, I think.
Okay.
And then Les, of course, was there, and Les was an institution.
Yeah.
And I worked with Les a lot of years, and he's a really nice fella. And
Seemed like we grew up from one age to many years. It was the same people.
Right.
Now you just don't have that anymore.
You don't, because the industry's just really volatile, and you have kids who want to get there and like, okay, I'm going to go to Quincy. I'm going to check that off my list. And I'm going to go to Springfield and check that off my list. And then I'm going to go to the kind of climb the ladder. And granted, there was a lot of ladder climbing back then. Don't get me wrong. But then you also had people, again, like our guests, like Shan, like Carol, like me, who made this a career and wanted to stay here because we had roots here, or we fell in love and married somebody and established a family and that kind of stuff. So, but we were talking about people who left, and one of those very popular guys who left was Corey McCloskey.
Yeah, and he's in Arizona now, right?
He is. He's at the Fox there, Philly, and there, and I think he does like wacky,
doesn't he have like a viral
weather stuff? And he's always
a viral video with like a mouse or something.
Had a few of them. I mean, you'll see every once in a while you'll see stuff on YouTube pop up for Corey. And then Michelle McCormack was the first morning anchor. Let's see, maybe Nora was. Anyway, I got to think about that. But she was at WGEM as well, and then she went to Wichita and Philadelphia, and now I think she's in Green Bay. So, and she was the WGEM back then. They had all that amazing coverage of the flood of '93.
Yes,
and she was involved in that along with the rest of the team, and that was something that that whole group kind of hung their hat on. I mean, they won Emmys. It was excellent coverage. I mean, they did a fantastic job. I was at WTAD Radio at the time with like me and one other half person, and like just trying to keep up with everything. But GEM just had this army of people, and it was great because it was one of the most important news events of our area, and it was nice to have them like prevent this comprehensive where Bob Turek's on the radio talking to how are things down at the SNI,
and
Bob Turek and Rich Kane and Leo Henning and all these guys, and Jeff Dorsey was on back then. They just did amazing work back then, and you look at those sort of seminal moments that we have, and it was a different world back then because again we're talking pre-internet. You're talking radio was still so important. I mean, President Clinton phoned in GEM radio that was a big deal.
Yeah, I remember
and it was.
I know. It's when you're mentioning all these names, it's bringing back so many memories.
Yeah.
I just remember sitting in front of the TV.
And as Ellen will attest, I'm stupid and remember all kinds of crap like that.
Which is awesome, because I don't.
But that was just really it was a big deal. And again, it's just changed so much. And again, I don't. The biggest change obviously has come around in the last 2.5 years when, number one, we started doing our thing, but also you had, Quincy Media sell out to Gray, and then you also had Sinclair make the decision to sort of do this news hub with KHQA, with basically the news is out of Champaign, and then they disseminated our way. And again, the Oakleys and the Lindsays did this community a tremendous service for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And I don't want to crap on that at all because they did. No. They did great work. And it's just different now, not having that local ownership, whether it's at the Herald Whig, whether it's at GEM. It is. It's but still, I mean, Gray, to their credit, they've still got a pretty large staff of people out there doing stuff. And you're still always going to have these kids. And again, this kind of leads into what we're going to talk about later, who want to do this, who want to I don't want to say be on TV, although some of them do, but they're like, this is a calling, this is a profession, this is journalism, this is something I want to do. And, there still needs a place for them to go. And I know Gray owns a lot of stations across the country, and they hire a lot of young kids straight out of school. And you've got a lot of these places like, Mizzou and Syracuse and Northwestern and Quincy University, who are all doing this work. And I hope I get some props for mentoring Quincy University in the same breath of all those schools. Better. But I think that, again, when I wanted to do it, I just wanted to be Jack Buck. I just wanted to do. I wanted to go do baseball games. I wanted to be the voice of St. Louis Cardinals.
And look at you now. You have surpassed that. Now you're like shooting for the stars, man.
I met Joe Buck once because we have a mutual friend, and we had a few pops together. And I said, look, I hated you. I absolutely hated you because I'm sitting there on my TV in Hannibal watching you do a Cardinal game, and I know the only reason you're there is because of your dad. And he said, I know, right? I was born on third base. I admit that. But he was always gracious about that and always admitted that. But I said, no, you are great, and you do an incredible job. So after I got over my initial jealousness, I'm like, realized, man, this guy's really good at what he does. I mean, just because he had the door open for him, I shouldn't shit on him for that. He had this door opened, and he does great work. And I think that's just, we all want to, look at this business that has, this industry that has just gone through so many changes and consolidations over the years, trying to do what we do on they call it hyper local level. It's great, and we hope that others follow suit and others do it in other communities. But again, it's really hard. It's really hard to do this.
And I think it's bittersweet. No, it's not even sweet. It's sad to see like the Herald wigs and the changes that are happening, but it is an evolution in the industry that is
also, I want to
inevitable.
clarify something. We had the thing on the Herald. The Herald Wig is still going to deliver in Quincy still going to have a paper in Quincy 5 days a week.
Oh, they are?
It's only the rural areas that are affected.
Oh.
Yeah, I did not. I had to clarify that. I've issued a clarification.
Or no?
It did not say that in the initial release
okay.
I received, but I got a call and I had some conversations. So so some of the rural areas are more effective, and they said for now we will continue to deliver in Quincy. So that is good. And again, I believe we should still have a local printed newspaper, but again, Muddy River News is not going to have a printed edition. We have people ask us that all the time, and I'm like, no.
Can you imagine?
We can't.
Just be Brittany and I all over it.
No,
just like
no.
Like our great commercial.
Our commercial.
You're the on air. You do this
we're the
kind of stuff.
personality. Yeah,
Brittany writes great stories.
Yes,
if you
she
ever
does.
want to write a story, we'd gladly take it, by the way.
It would take me months and months. I pick a word and then I just.
Not you don't pick a word. It's just you have 6 other jobs.
Well, not only that. It's like when I do something, I want to do it right. I used to write a blog, but each blog entry, which should just roll off your tongue, would take me like days. Because I want to make sure I'm saying it right.
I get so busy just doing the running of the thing and doing the stuff. It's like I'd like to just sit down and just write creatively at some point. But at the end of the day, I'm just like gassed. I'm like, just give me one of these. And I'm got to edit this podcast. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to double check the ad contracts. I got to go over the AR and make sure the billing and the expenses, all this.
Blah, blah, blah. You're getting boring.
Exactly. That's boring. That's the boring stuff.
All right, sit down and write. Like, you better.
Well, I'm going to go edit. Actually, I'm going to go produce the second half of our show.
Yeah, and you
I don't have to post-produce
You mentioned so many companies or institutions, Herald Wig, WGEM, KHQA, Quincy University. Our guest is associated with all of those.
Yeah. She's going to be able to talk about, she can talk about the past, present, and future of local journalism. And
I'm excited.
Again, I think I've known her a long time, and I think she's great to have this conversation with.
Yeah, super excited.
So anyway, they'll be back.
All right.
The Liquor Booth is your home for a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits. The Liquor Booth has 2 locations in Quincy, 3520 Broadway and 1500 North 12th Street. The Liquor Booth, where it's always happy hour.
A&B Properties is Quincy's largest apartment rental company with hundreds of units available. They offer short-term and long-term rentals with 1 up to 4 bedroom apartments. A&B Properties meets the needs of its tenants with care, compassion, and a quality of service that exceeds expectations. A&B Properties also has a convenient tenant app for you to do your payments or make repair requests. Give them a call today. A&B Properties, 217-919-8080, Quincy.
Well, I thought that was a pretty damn good conversation we were having.
No
I can't believe
kidding.
That wasn't. Anyway, are we ready?
We can redo it again.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Nora Baldner, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were just talking about, we have a lot of men on Club Muddy, which is awesome because they all bring something unique to the table. But we were like, what badass female can we get to join us?
I was
And-
hoping you would introduce me again.
Yes, as that. Yeah. Well,
Because
I mean,
that's-
it's a pretty,
I'm putting that on my resume.
you should. You've earned it.
I love it.
So we were talking earlier about, all of the, I mean, growing up, you were of course a household name, and I'm not young, I'm not old. I'm just saying you were a household name.
It's okay if you watch
Yeah.
SpongeBob instead of WGEM News in the morning.
Hey.
Because My kids did.
Okay.
So that's okay.
Okay.
I'll give you that.
But we did. I mean, you were a name in our household. Everybody loved you. I didn't know that you were associated with everything, though. Like WGEM, KHQA,
right.
Harold Wig. And then, of course, I'm wearing my QU swag because you are
Thank
now.
you for that.
Yeah.
I teach now at Quincy University.
Which is so
I teach
cool.
How long have you
communication.
been doing that?
10 years. This is my 10th year there.
Well,
I know, it's
congrats.
kind
That
of
is-
crazy.
And it's communications, right?
Correct.
Is that?
Yeah, TV
okay.
production, communication, multimedia journalism, but actually now we call it content creation.
Okay. I'm
And
familiar with that.
In the intro, you guys kind of touched upon, students who want to go into this industry, and it is changing and it is different. And my experience, anecdotally, just from our area, when we have students come through, I get a lot of stories from the students who say, "Oh, yeah, I really want to do this. I really would love to do this, but my parents don't think it's a good idea." And today, in today's world, parents have a huge influence on what their kids are going to do.
Sure.
Number one, they're paying for it. Back in the day, when I was in college, I worked at a grocery store and I could pay tuition.
Yeah.
I know you guys have heard that you can't do that anymore. It's ridiculous. So
astronomical.
So students feel a little beholden to their parents. They're paying for their degree. And the parents are looking at the state of journalism and saying, boy, it's kind of dangerous and the pay is low. And they're seeing perhaps, I don't want to call Quincy a news desert. We're kind of a news, what would be a different, not quite a desert yet, but we have seen a constriction of local media. And,
Yeah,
and
right.
Bob was saying earlier in the intro, we have had large corporations come in and buy out
Sure.
our local media properties. So it has changed the content and it has changed the industry. So, parents are seeing this and they're saying, why don't you go into business? Why don't you go into, something where you can make money, right? But eventually we do get the students who say, well, I want to make a difference. I want to get into a community and tell the stories and hold the powerful accountable and, find how things work and what the world is supposed to be like. And let's expose that and let's put a spotlight on it. So
Right.
it's interesting because now we really focus more on content creation, which you guys are doing here, which is fascinating because it really is a story, information, and the distribution has changed a little bit.
Sure.
So it's good. I mean, it's really good stuff, but the students are kind of like, okay, so I call it content creation more for the parents.
Right.
It's really the same, but
Now,
we
do
gotta
you
get the
think,
marketing in
do you
there.
ever hear like parents say anything like, because you were talking about avenues, to market, it has changed. So not saying that anybody can be a journalist, but almost everyone is on a certain basis. So
Sure.
I can see that, not only is it dangerous, not only is it low pay, which I don't really know all that, but I'll trust you on that. But it's almost like you're competing with the everyday person with an iPhone.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
It's so wild.
It's so ironic that we're talking about this because just today we were talking about, today was the lecture in media law. And we just start a little thing, we start with some surface stuff, don't libel anyone and, what are you allowed to do, what are you not allowed to do. And it's interesting because I love this class because what I do is I lead the students to the point of shouldn't there be some kind of test, some kind of license, some kind of certificate to prove that you're a journalist. Shouldn't that, we have to have a driver's license.
Right.
You have to have a license to practice medicine. You have to prove that you can do something in order to, work as a professional in many industries. But journalism doesn't have that.
At all? Like, there's no...
Nothing. So, let's do a class. Okay, Brittany,
Yeah.
let's do a class.
Okay.
So the class is, so shouldn't there be?
Yeah.
Don't you think there should be?
I think it makes sense.
What would that look like?
Oh gosh, I don't know. You would
Right?
definitely.
Can you
definitely
write a
have
sentence? Can
yeah,
you write
would,
a headline? Can you
You would have to
spell?
do that. I think like responsibility in journalism would have to be a part of it,
Yes,
right?
like ethics.
Yeah.
Right. So what would the test look like? And I agree with the students. I'm baiting you a little bit, but I agree with the students up to a point. And it's like, okay, you guys, and they have really good ideas, and yes, it should be. You should test on this, and you should do this, and you should do this. Right. Absolutely. And then I say, okay, who would administer the test? Who's in charge of giving you the license?
Bob Goff.
Okay.
Because, yeah, I see where
I
you're
have
going with
some
that.
words on that one. I have some words.
I think I see what you're saying, but I think a lot of jobs have that, where you go to school for something and you're not intending on doing that. Like, for example, what you're doing right now, like you're a professor, you're a teacher. You
Right.
I didn't take a class on how to be a teacher.
Yeah.
Isn't
Right.
that's something. But,
Funny.
But I'm sure you're a great teacher.
I
But yeah, I didn't go to school to be a journalist. I went to school for criminal justice and psychology, and I think I'm using those things. But yeah, I don't know to say, like, does a certain person have to fill a
Right.
test? That is interesting to think about that.
Well, and you have to hold people accountable. So who's holding? So
Right.
So you're kind of the governor. So who's going to administer this test that says you're
Right.
Yeah.
So if you think about it this way too, I mean, some barriers of entry could be a degree, but Brittany, I'm going to tell you that the most successful journalists did not major in journalism because, especially, like if you go to a TV production type of school, how do you run a camera? You guys, how do you turn on a microphone? You guys have all that.
I barely know that. Just
But you
FYI.
right. But you need to
Have that
know
passion, like you
something
said.
about something else.
Yeah.
You have to know a little bit about everything, maybe specialize in an area of your, that you're passionate about. But what's interesting, and here's kind of the kicker to the class today, and this is where I end them, and then they march off and they start, talking with each other and trying to figure it out. But picture this. If the government gave licenses, as you can imagine, we've had some interesting politicians in our lifetime and interesting relationships with the media. How many working, solid, ethical journalists
Right.
wouldn't get a license?
Right.
Because of political, I don't like them, and they are looking into my
I
campaign
was going to
finances
ask
and
that.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I was
Right?
going to ask that because you've been you've been on both sides now, right? So, growing up as a journalist in Quincy and now being, a professor, how have things changed as far as even in the political arena, as far as
Oh my
the
gosh.
agendas and bias and I'm not just saying mass media or mainstream media, because it seems like, and I know that, WGM, KHQA, I'm not blasting them, but they're not so much local anymore, but I have definitely seen a change, and I was curious about your thoughts on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So really what happened, so first we have to start with the premise that media is a business.
Yeah.
Media makes money. And, other than NPR and, for not-for-profit, but media has to make a profit. So the real evolution of media and how it works and losing the localism started quite some time ago when the internet started and everyone in sales in media said, oh, that's a cute little thing over here. Look at this cute little internet over here. But we're still selling TV ads or newspaper ads. And you know what? We'll throw in the internet for free. We'll give you some, some page views, or we'll give you, some ads, side ads, or whatever. Bob knows what they're called, but we'll give you all this stuff over here for free because we really want you to buy still our TV ads and our newspaper ads. Well, what happened was when the internet took off and people really migrated there, the sales money wasn't there. And so everyone in the TV newspaper industry said, oh, okay, wait a minute, now I'm going to come back to you as my client and say, actually now the ads that we're going to run on the internet are 3 times as much as the ads on TV. So would you please buy both? And smart business people said, wait, it was free last year and it's 3 times now. No, I'm not going to pay for
thanks.
it.
Yeah.
So then what happened was newsrooms shrunk because when you lose money, you lose people. That's the first thing to go. You don't sell your building, you get rid of your employees. So newsrooms have shrunk. The coverage area is less because you have fewer people. You can't cover as much. And if you operate, with the syndication for the newspaper, or you get, network news from your network affiliate, you can fill your shows with content that's not local.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So you guys actually, you are the local news because you have, boots on the ground that are covering, city council meetings and writing, I don't know, 3,000 words
Yeah.
instead of,
We also aren't allowed to really cover national topics, even like when we are allowed.
We
but
do sometimes. We
it's-
tiptoe into them, but we do
really
want to stay
focus.
true to the local scene. So, I mean, which is good because there's so much nasty shit going on nationally.
I was
It's like
clicking on things like on our local news that was disappointing. It was, always, I mean, it wasn't that disappointing because it was like about a panda bear in California, but
Yeah.
it was on our local news.
Yeah.
So that kind of didn't really make sense.
Yeah,
And that's where
or like gun, and I'm not trying to get super political, but there would be like a mass
we can get
shooting.
no.
Yeah, so that we will. But okay, so there was like a mass shooting in something, and you could just almost feel the bias of it. That it's like, well, it's not even anywhere near here, but it is covering a certain topic that we do know that you're heavily pro or con or anti. So it's very much I can look at that page and say, oh yeah, I know they're right wing, left wing. Like, it's
or what
very
their
obvious.
agenda is.
Yes, it's very, very obvious. And I'm not saying good or bad. I'm not saying, oh, they should be right wing or left wing. I'm just saying, as a news source,
Don't mask it as being.
we like to be. Actually, I had just somebody the other day who we don't agree on a lot politically, but we do have some gray areas where we overlap. And she said, I'm so proud of Muddy River because originally I thought it was just going to be some, conservatist, just total right wing.
You guys are having me on.
Well, and that's why I'm
If
like,
that
we're trying,
doesn't say something,
right? And I was like, we are very, we're very down the middle, and I think that is why I still really, really love working here because it's very interesting to get both sides of the story, and I think that's what's responsible, especially when we're putting it out locally. Now, nationally, I can't even pay attention to that because I got enough stuff going on here, but it is obvious in, some of the other corporations around, I guess we'll say, news
We're
corporations.
down the middle, but we're very open about our opinions too.
Sure.
Like we're not masking
Yes,
it
yes,
to
yes.
be like we're delivering the news in
Yeah.
in a neutral form. No, we're pretty open about our opinions, and I
Sure.
think that's what makes us different
Yeah.
too. Is like these types of podcasts and these shows are opinionated shows.
Yes.
Well, years and years ago, and she will tell you this story as well. I was on the Mary Griffith show, and I can't remember why. It was either promoting, a special, or it was promoting a series. I can't remember the details, but so I sat down, in front of Mary, and she's an old salt, old news person too, and so she made some comment, and I said, "Oh, Mary, there's no such thing as being, objective, or there's no." Everyone has a bias. Everyone has a filter.
Right.
And she was like, what? And she turned off the mic. She said, what are you doing? That's our whole business. And I said, no, it's actually you can't ever claim that. And the minute you try to claim it is when you've lost your audience and lost, because everyone looks at something differently, and we all come to every story or every situation with baggage and backgrounds and filters. And I think the true journalist's goal and job is to be transparent about that, number one, and then say, okay, but here's what I found out here, and here's what I found out here. Now, you have to be really careful of false equivalency.
Yeah.
Because just because there's 20 people marching for this, and there's only one person marching for this, you can't make them equal.
Right.
So there is, it's a dance.
Well,
it's
I
a fine
said
line,
to her
right?
actually yesterday, I said, it's not my job to convince anyone. It's not your job. We just say what's on our mind, and hopefully we give enough information or enough of our opinion that it provokes people to do their own research and to start critically thinking on their own, and not to take one thing, as gold, but to take what we're saying and be like, oh, that's an interesting idea, to kind
Absolutely.
of put that
You
out
saying
there.
that about the objectiveness, I'm like,
Yeah.
I really want to take your class now. I'm like,
Yeah,
Bob,
right?
Bob, will
Yeah,
you,
Bob, you
will
gonna pay
you,
for it?
pay for my class?
Yeah.
But
I always said I wanted to go back to school.
But that is very real, and I do think that I don't want to say that that's why the old model of like we were talking about before, the 6 o'clock news, before Wheel of Fortune, that we sat down, your family's
traditional,
your family's cooking dinner, and you're flipping back and forth between 7 and 10,
Yep.
and
Click, click.
I think a little of that died because they were we were masking what you said, like we were trying to say we're presenting this in an objective light,
Right.
and people want a human touch to it, which is what's actually going to kill everything. Is ignoring that human touch, because I mean, now we're using AI and stuff like that. Like, I mean, we are not using AI so much, but eventually, who knows, we might, if that's going to lead us to advance.
It's evolving.
But that
quickly.
human touch is what I think is what people need in the news.
And it makes it interesting.
Not only that, but like makes it so that you can trust the news again. People lost trust in the news, and there was a reason for that. And I think it was the masking of objectiveness and then a hidden agenda.
Yeah.
So
we lost trust during a political campaign. I mean, trust had been eroding, no question, no question.
Right.
But there was a prominent, significant political campaign that broke the camel's back and said, you know, this is all fake. And so, you know, that was interesting to watch and tough to take, because traditionally, you know, journalists wouldn't be a part of the story. And so they're like, okay, this is a political campaign. It's a political slogan, not even original, but go to, you know, that's poli-sci. So, you know, this is something happening, and journalism didn't recognize how devastating it would be to the industry. So they were saying, okay, that's just your slogan, but they didn't realize how impactful it would be on society. And so now journalism finally went, oh, wait a minute, we actually have to prove and we have to earn back trust. You're absolutely 100% right. It is like, okay, now we really have to change the way that we are presenting, the way that we're talking about it, the things that we're doing, teaching media literacy in the elementary grades. Because, you said, Ashley, you said something about doing your own research. Well, yes, but that's hard.
It is hard. I was just going to say that. As soon as I said it, I was like, you don't
have time.
There are no more facts anymore, it seems.
Well, there are.
You can find anything. If I Google anything at any point, I can find anything to support it, whatever I want to believe. I can find something to support it.
You know, the YouTube videos on 4chan, you cannot trust.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you can find the truth, and you can't. But
even peer-reviewed journals, you know, those sometimes
they're having a moment too.
Yeah, right.
It's like,
yeah.
And it's like the New York Times, and you can tell it's just so hard to which one is right, and then you know, and I'm not trying to, but so recently you hear people talking about certain big moguls owning the media, right? And who's controlling them, and how are they making their money, and what media and what stories do they want to cover?
It is all
right.
money.
It's money and power, and it's like, is it even news anymore, or is it all agenda? And I think that's where I struggle with mainstream media anymore, and that's why I stick to things like Muddy River News, because it's so hard to weed through the bullshit anymore.
Right. So I think there's a glimmer of hope. So let me hopefully
please
give you a glimmer of
do
hope.
it, sister.
So there are, you know, in any industry, I mean, pick one. You know, there's people who are, you know, arrested. There are people who aren't good actors. There are people who behave badly, right?
Good eggs and bad eggs.
Absolutely. The nice thing about journalism, because we don't have a certificate, because we don't have regulations, we are a little self-regulating. So you've heard the stories of, you know, the Pulitzer Prize winner who had to give back the prize after it was revealed that they made up everything, right? Janet Cook is one example. So the industry itself is a little bit self-regulating, but day in and day out, when the corporate owners have an agenda and they want, and honestly, their agenda is to make money.
Yes.
And so when it looks like a political agenda, it is just, where's the money? Where's the political money? It really is. So they can tell you, oh, I believe in these policies, or that it's about money. It's where they're finding the money bags. So there are good people, there are good journalists who truly, truly want to make a difference and hold up the standards of holding the powerful accountable and shining a light on inequity and, you know, doing the right work and doing the right things. They don't brag about themselves.
Yeah.
So you're not hearing about that, but you are hearing about, you know, the talk, you know, on both MSNBC and Fox, and you know, both sides
it's
have
just noise.
Have that. Well, it is noise. It's
anymore.
Entertainment. I mean, that whole thing started when CNN. Under Ted Turner, you know, it went around the world and it had correspondents everywhere. The business model didn't hold up, so they started losing money, so they started pulling people in, but they were 24 hours. So, right, they were the first company to go 24-hour
Yeah,
news.
yeah.
Well, what happened was they didn't have enough content to cover 24 hours, so they said,
Rerun
turn
it.
on a camera. Where am I? Turn on a camera.
Yeah.
Can't tell you guys don't have lights on, so I don't know which
I know,
one
that's
is on.
what I
at
was
any
I
given
just,
time.
I'm always
Where's
just
the
looking
producer?
in the light, and that's why I'm like, hey.
You just kind of glance.
Yeah,
in
you
each
just
other's
kind of
direction.
look at all of them. No.
They're like, don't look in the
So
light.
they said, hey, you guys in the newsroom, sit down and start talking, right? To fill time, to create content.
Oh, so just having
That's
conversations.
that's where it
about-
started.
yeah.
And then we are where we
And
are.
here we are.
But again, trying to do the research, we all have jobs. We don't have time. Once we start going down a rabbit hole.
Oh, gosh.
So,
Yes.
right. So to your point, Brittany, what journalists can provide is context.
Yes.
So there's a crash at 12th and Main on Tuesday, right? There's a crash at 12th and Main. And I'm making this up, right, for the audience. And then Thursday, there's a crash at 12th and Main. And then Saturday, there's a crash at 12th and Main. Well, you can keep reporting the crashes, but shouldn't the journalist say, hey, City Council, there's been a lot of accidents at this intersection. Should we do a safety study?
Right.
Are you doing anything about this? That's context.
Right.
So a lot of journalism will look at a situation, look at a problem, and that's the job. So they get to find the original research, figure it out, look at the context and say, here's what's been going on these past several years or what have you, if it's an issue or something, and say, here's the context.
Yeah.
And I think that's what in losing the trust, we've lost the context of the information.
Sure.
That
makes
we
sense.
used to trust journalists with saying, can you put it all together for me? What does it mean?
Right.
And if you
And know that what they're saying isn't, biased against one thing or another.
and kind of like false, bias will come through, and people aren't stupid, so they'll see it.
Sure.
And then they get to choose, right? We have a menu of journalists and sources, so you get to choose who you want to watch and who you don't want to watch or read or listen to, or that
Right.
sort of, people figure it out.
I know,
People
but then it
figure
creates
out.
the division, and I feel like that's another freaking rabbit hole we can get down. So then it's like everybody's on one side or the other, and everybody's Fox, or everybody's CNN. It's like,
But
gosh.
you know what I've seen? You know what's happening? Is I think people are starting to come a little bit into the middle.
I think so too. I think it's gone
I'm
so far
seeing-
extreme on
Right.
on both sides that people are like, screw this. We're
Right.
coming back together.
I agree.
I
God,
think
I
that's-
hope so.
I do too,
agree.
because it's time.
is
Real
It
quick
can
on
only
your
go so far.
context
Yeah.
thing, I have to, because I was thinking about this. So are you saying that like journalism is lost the context? So now journalists, so advice for us
Right,
that aren't
right,
real,
right, right.
but I try sometimes.
I think we kind of do it.
Is to include how you acquired that information.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
also
Yes.
that's twofold. Do I have to say then, because generally half the time that I acquire the information that I acquire, it's through the Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah.
Do you have
Say it.
Yeah, and
Say
then
it.
the other thing to include with that too, anybody can use the Freedom of Information Act. I feel like
Absolutely.
Yeah, any
that's
Joe
kind
Blow.
of what. That's what I think interested me into starting to dabble into this. I was like, wait, anybody could do that?
Right.
So
Right.
She's like a
That's
super
awesome.
investigator.
I love it.
She's really good. She's,
love it.
She's curious by nature. She calls herself, what do you call yourself? Like a
Perry Mason.
Yeah, no, she's
love
like
it.
she thinks of it as like a negative thing, like she's ball busting
Oh,
or something. And I'm
Negative
like,
Nancy?
Negative Nancy. And I'm like, no, I said you're curious, and I love it because she teaches me, because I don't have the wherewithal or the time really to go out and dig, and she digs and teaches me.
That's journalism.
Yeah,
That's
she's
what I'm
very,
saying.
She is a pro journalist.
Right.
Well,
Congratulations.
I learned from watching Nora.
Yeah.
Before
See, there you go. There you go.
I did come from a family of crazy media,
Yeah.
and
Do you take Venmo or?
yeah. Well, I'm still wanting this class. I
Yeah,
said,
I would love to take
you
that
saying
class.
that about the objectiveness. I mean, I don't know how to say it.
It's like,
It was-
ding.
that was beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Like, I don't know how
Yeah.
to say that.
I think people have this image of what journalists think and what people think of them, and then when you actually meet one and be like, oh well, wait a minute, maybe my observations or my thoughts were a little bit off or something.
Well,
like
this is
that.
our
right?
first time actually meeting in
Yeah.
person, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I wouldn't have
Yeah.
I wouldn't have
I feel like
guessed
we all have a girl crush on her.
I think it's vice versa.
Yeah,
No,
I think it's
no.
awesome.
Yeah.
So I said we would get a little more political. One thing so you ran for mayor.
I did.
Right? Congratulations on
did.
running.
It was awesome.
That takes.
And you ran
I did.
as well.
It
City
takes some
council.
ovaries. I'm not even going to say balls because ovaries are definitely stronger, but it does take courage to
That's
put
what I
your
was
name
saying.
in the hat. And I think for me, and I want to ask you the same question, for me, kind of I knew I was up against. You knew
what you were up
I
against.
did. I knew that it was a long shot, but I was like, you know what? I sat back and bitched long enough. I am going to try to make a difference. And
Don't stop.
as much,
going.
see, now I have my platform here, which I love. And as much as I'm not making a difference like on the city council, I think some things that we've discussed have impacted some further discussions there. So I kind of get the best of both worlds. So I love the process of running. I almost relish in the fact that I lost because I didn't lose by as much as I thought I would.
Right.
It also, I
Right.
think, built a little bit of character in that kind of, yes, it's awesome that you did it. Gave me a little thicker skin. And I was like, you know what? I gave it a shot. And here I am. Now I have MRN. So it was awesome. So I wanted to ask you, how was the process for you, and what did
It's awesome.
Did you enjoy it?
I loved it.
Yeah. Okay.
Even the craziness.
Yeah.
Even the craziness. So my actual background, my undergraduate degree was in political science.
Okay.
So I always loved watching politics, reading about, I just was kind of a political junkie. And ironically, I went to a school that had trimesters, not 2 semesters. So my winter trimester of my senior year of undergrad, I had an internship out in Washington, D.C., and I went out there and, I was going to be a lawyer, I was going to be politician, do all that kind of stuff. That was kind of my thought back then. And the congressman who I was working for had a studio and would record a show and send it back to his district for his constituents. And one day the press secretary was gone or sick or something, and he said, I'm this little intern sitting at the desk, not knowing what I'm doing. And he said, come on down to the studio, here's the scripts, stand by the camera or something. And I walked in, and it's much like walking into your studio here. You kind of go, what magic is this all
Right,
about?
right.
Right? And so I go back to school after my internship, and I went to my counselor, and I said, I want to switch my major.
Wow.
And
Just like that.
and she's like, well, you're going to graduate in 2 months. What are you doing?
Shit.
Right. So I was like, oh, okay.
Hang on, let me think
that's
about
right.
this.
That part.
Yeah.
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 So that's what led me to go to grad school, because then
Wow.
I actually got a different internship in a TV station in Sacramento, and a huge TV market at the time. It's still a bigger market, but the lines of size of markets and where you can go once you graduate have kind of changed. But so then I got convinced to go to grad school, and that's how I ended up at Mizzou in journalism. And what was your where were we?
So
going with that?
So I was talking about your run
so
and
then
what
how-
you
Okay.
So how
I got there.
So how did you get into? So you did the poli-sci, right? And
Right.
then what year was it? 3 years ago? 4, 3, 3?
Yeah,
Yeah,
about
so-
3.
okay.
So the election's
Right in
coming
the
up.
thick of
Yeah.
it all.
The
It
Corona.
was, it was during COVID,
Yeah.
so it was the summer of 2020 that there were some discussions and some meetings and all that good stuff that we decided to kind of take the plunge. Like you said, it was about getting into the arena and trying to make a difference and trying to figure out, some things have to be different. This is not working, and things could be better. And I will say this, someone from the Democratic side or someone from the Republican side, the irony of all of it is both want to make things better.
Yeah.
Now, they might disagree on how to make things better,
Sure.
or what exactly things need to be better, but everyone is always aiming for improvement.
Right.
Right. So you're always trying to, let's look at this issue, let's look at this situation, let's fix it.
Yeah, nobody gets in
right?
there and says, God, I can't wait to screw up Quincy even more, right? It's like everybody has
Well, that's debatable.
Who said that? Who said that? No, I think you're right. Everybody
kidding.
goes in with specific ideas, and even though, we don't all agree on what, the path to get there, I do think the overarching idea is to
Right.
definitely improve Quincy. So,
Right. And I think too, when we were in it, I think you ran against an incumbent. Incumbents are really tough to beat.
Yeah.
They are unless they, run down Main Street with a knife or
Right.
something.
Sure.
Tough. They're tough to beat. They're pretty entrenched. They've got their supporters. They kind of know what's going on. It was fun because in my race, the incumbent was gone, so it was fun. We didn't have the numbers, we knew that going in,
Right.
but it was still a challenge. It was still fun to, do the debates and do all of that good stuff. It was.
I didn't get to see you in a lot of those, but I bet you were. I bet you were rock solid.
No one really did because again, everything was being streamed, but people weren't. We didn't look at streaming as much as we do now. I mean, COVID really helped us with Zooms and
It did, yeah.
getting digital.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was like, oh well, a handful of people would show up to an event.
I also think it was just such a volatile
It
time.
was so
Everybody was
strange.
just
I thought,
Right.
wasn't it streamed though? I swore it was on.
A lot of them
remember.
were streamed.
Okay,
We
yeah,
had-
because I know
we
I
had
had it
some.
on the bar TV.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
With
remember.
closed captions.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
You're like pouring your drink and watching.
Well, I mean, no, I was working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would get people in the bar always involved in this stuff.
Good for you.
Yeah, I don't know. It's what I try to do.
Interesting.
I
It
think
is
it's
interesting.
so interesting. The things that people would tell you. I don't know if you found this, but I don't know if you did. Did you ever do any canvassing, like walking door to door
Yeah.
and
Yes.
doing all that? And the things people would say
Yeah.
were, it was kind of mind blowing. For one,
Off the
quick
wall
example-
stuff, kinda.
Off the wall
Yeah.
stuff, like why we shouldn't pay to light the bridge.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
We don't.
I think that's
that came from
misinformation.
right.
Yeah.
So
But
just
we're going to.
Yeah.
I had people asking me about feral cats, which until I did it, I was like, I had no idea this was such a problem. Shame on me. But I was like, yeah, trap and release. That's the only way to do it, right?
Right.
But I didn't realize that it was such a thing. I had a lot of people trash talking every city council member when I was, and I was like,
Right.
that's unfortunate because, and I would always say I ran against Mike Ryan. I did not have anything against him personally. I just wanted to see what I could do. I wanted to see what
Absolutely.
I could do in there. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like a trash talking game. I wasn't out like, slandering. I wasn't like, I could do better. No, I just want a shot. I want to see what I can do. And it's unfortunate that I didn't get the shot, but it was still a really cool experience. And now
You
here
could
I
do it
am.
again.
I could.
No,
I
she
know.
is where
Do
she
it
needs to
again.
be.
I know, but now
she
I'm
is
like,
where
yeah,
she needs to
now
be,
I'm like,
Nora.
I think
Brittany's
it's
like, nope.
I think
Nope.
it's a blessing in disguise because now I see what all they're going through and like the sanctuary city stuff, and I just wouldn't want I just don't think I want to be involved in that kind of decision making. I
helped
crazy.
campaign a little bit for the mayoral campaign because I was campaigning for Paul Havermale, and I did some cold calling, and that was interesting. Where,
interesting.
like you said, people would just go on, and I would be like, "And I'm losing connection."
I'm going through a tunnel. Yeah,
But yeah, they'll just go off on, like you said, and
Yeah.
it's, oh man. That is interesting though, the cold calling and going door to door, human interaction.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that was something about campaigning that, I don't know, we forget that,
Yeah, a lot
And
of
it's
people really like
kind
to
of forget
just
how to
talk.
do.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And it's so strange. It's not strange. It's interesting how the issues are so granular. There's feral cats across the street, or, don't like the bridge, or fix the roads, which,
Everybody
that's
says that
legit,
one. Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's legit.
Let's cheers to
yeah.
that.
let's cheers to
Fix
that.
the roads,
Yes,
right?
Nora, yes.
roads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fix the roads.
But then also, when you look at the media, and this is kind of back to your agenda setting and all of that, especially national, we're talking about larger issues that affect everyone. But when it gets down to the city council level, mayoral level, even state rep, I would say, you've got to really focus on what people day to day
Yeah,
are worried about and what they want to see fixed and what can actually happen. And it's, I don't know, I loved it. It was a fascinating experience. It was a great experience. Actually, the door-to-door stuff I really enjoyed because
Did
I
you?
met a lot of really cool people who
I enjoyed it,
had
but
a lot to say.
It was intimidating, I think. Like, not because I was like, oh, I don't know who I'm knocking. And then as soon as I knocked on my first door, here comes Mike Ryan, and I was like, shit. So then it's just, it's
Was
just
he
like,
campaigning too? And you?
yeah, like 2 doors
Oh.
behind me, and I
Oh,
was
it
like,
was-
oh.
I wish you would have wore
And
a
everybody
GoPro the
and
whole time.
Everybody had told me that they had never seen him out canvassing, so I was going to be a step ahead. And then my first knock, I was
Is
like,
2 steps
there he
ahead.
is. I was like, well, hi, Mr. Ryan. But it was interesting. I have another question. Did you have a question? I don't want to.
Well, are you going to get involved again?
Yeah.
Oh, I would never close that door.
Yeah.
But I don't have plans today.
Okay.
How's that?
Good answer.
That's
That's
a
a good
good
politician answer.
politician
It is.
answer.
Yeah, that was really, really good.
That's really good.
So do you think that, so it was during COVID, and I hate even talking about the pandemic or blah, 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 but I do want to know if you think that was, if any of that basically created any kind of disservice or, because I know a lot of what you ran on or talked about, at least from what I saw, was, masking and keeping the public safe. And I just kind of wonder if you think any of that really affected, because Quincy had very strong viewpoints about that.
Yeah. And I would, yes. And
yeah.
so I will still stand by that.
Okay, that was going to be my next question.
Sure. Because, here's why. So I think politics is all local and politics is all personal, right? So I lived with someone who, if they got sick, it would have been bad.
Sure.
Right? So my view, my outlook, everything that I was pointed toward during the pandemic was to literally keep the person that I live with
Something near and dear
safe,
to you. Sure.
right? So when, and through my upbringing, when, someone said put a mask on or, get a shot or whatever it is, wash your hands or stand 10 feet apart, medically to me that made sense. I mean, other countries do this when they get a cold or the flu. So to me, I looked at the medicine of it and I go, okay, my life experience agrees with that, and I think that's a good idea, right? So everything that I was focused on and still agree with is what is so wrong with wearing a mask for other people? Okay, could you get it? Sure. Are the masks 100%? Not if you don't have an KN95, whatever, all of the details of it. But we lost civility toward each other. We couldn't even inconvenience ourselves for, what was it, 18 months? 20 months?
It's supposed to be 2 weeks.
We're done. But we were like, it's
but now it's coming back.
over.
So that was why I was asking, because I
But
think
now we have the vaccine. So we're not
but
ever
the
going to go back
science
to where
and
we were.
all of the
right?
the science and all of the developments and the back and forth between, it could be, red, blue, it could be that kind of stuff, or it could be people saying, it's the news about the vaccine, the developments that have happened, the information that we have now that we didn't have originally could sway people's minds to say, maybe masking wasn't
Just yesterday,
as helpful.
Just yesterday in the Senate, they passed that they can know on October 25th, because this is recording on the 26th.
Yeah.
The Senate just passed that the federal law will no longer ever be able to do a mask mandate on public transit.
Oh, really?
Or, planes, automobiles.
I mean, a mandate's not really a law anyway, right? It's just
a state can
right?
the state can still mandate. I mean, this is just on a federal level.
Okay.
And then I guess, I don't know, the other thing is like what you're saying is there are studies coming out now that was different from what we were presented before. And and not to like get into whatever.
Oh,
but
we can get into
I don't want to
It's all
because,
good.
but you said
It's
you
all
followed
good.
the medicine. It's like, did you follow the medicine or did we follow
Well,
the
I didn't.
media?
Here's
Is what I think a lot of people did. Like when
Right.
they
Well,
say,
we just
I
didn't
followed the
know.
medicine.
But I'm still a person who will trust someone who has a medical degree over someone who has a YouTube channel.
Right.
That's me.
Yeah,
sure.
Call me crazy. But also here's what I come back to. We know who died.
right.
Probably know personally people who died, right? I do. We know people who died. We will never, 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 ever be able to prove or know who didn't die because I wore a mask to Hy-Vee. We will never be able to know that or prove that. So if it inconvenienced me for a day, a month, a year, I'm okay with doing that.
Yeah.
And that's just me personally. it was, I mean, when was the last pandemic, 100 years ago? So we didn't know how to behave. I mean, people were anti-maskers then, people were maskers then.
Yeah,
We
right.
had the same, history repeated itself.
Yeah.
We had the exact same experience, right?
Or
But we
experiment.
I think
Yeah.
it's just, it was so divisive. And I kind of,
Right.
originally I agreed
Right.
with you. I was like, what's the big deal? And then as it went on and on and on and things started to develop, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is enough. And I felt like it was more of a coercion and almost like
I
an
think so, too.
experiment.
But like
it
you
was
said,
like,
the
how far
effect-
can we push them? How long can we go? It was 2 weeks. Now it's
yes.
masks. Now it's this. Now it's vaccines. Now it's, and it almost felt like, holy shit, are we ever going to see the end of it?
But we did, and
I
we
know.
knew we would.
But now they're coming back, I heard. Like, the
I mean,
mask
yeah,
mandate.
but like,
So
what
it's
ended
we'll
it?
never
It's never
have
going to
that
go away.
It'll never go away. We'll never have
Right.
that
What
experience
ended it
again.
though? Because
Right.
not everyone was,
Right.
I mean, the argument of we have a vaccine. Hi, I'm not vaccinated,
Yeah.
and like I'm not going to be vaccinated.
And I
That's
think
not-
to each their own. And that's why the
But that
only
didn't
reason I
end
hate the
it.
mandate is because I think to each their own. And I do agree that if you have someone who is close to you, you should take precautions.
Right.
They
Yes.
should take precautions.
Yes.
Now, for you to tell me that because you have someone sick that I should
Right.
be forced to do something is that's the only time I get
And-
a little kind of
Right.
ugh. Because
And the
then
whole-
where does it stop?
I get you.
Yeah.
And the whole you tell me how to behave and
and not in so many words, but
how do I say this?
you don't have to say it nicely.
No.
Yeah, just
Spit
spill it.
Yeah.
Well,
Spit the
I mean,
tea, sister.
Sanctuary City.
Yeah.
You can't tell me.
Yeah.
Right.
So don't tell me. So
Yeah.
Right.
we're on the same page.
Yes.
We're on
Yeah.
the same
There's-
page with that.
Right.
Yeah.
We're on the same page with that.
Yeah.
But again, I think it is. I mean, this
It's
country.
human decency, I think, over, and I think
That's what
the
it should have been
problem-
in the
it
first
should
place.
be
The
human
government
decency.
shouldn't get involved.
And
It
when
should
they
just
did,
be-
the minute they did, is the minute you saw people digging their heels in the sand because so many people have distrust in the government. And if they would have stayed out of it, and it would have just been medical doctors, or it would have just been
Right.
your neighbor saying, "Hey, it would really be nice if we could all as a community come together."
But the
that
government
would have
and
been
the
different.
media got involved.
Yeah, I think they screwed it up from the get go, and I really hope that.
Well, they screwed it up because a certain person was in office. Okay.
yeah,
So, anyway, back to. So
it could have. I mean,
Zing.
yeah,
I mean,
I think it works
you
both
knew
ways.
who I was when I walked in the door.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think
Okay.
if I'm looking up here, like we just mentioned presidents, I think they all suck. I think every. I mean, I really
It's- I
do.
know.
It is so, and that's what we were talking about, coming back to the middle, because I think it's time that the extreme sides of the divisiveness and just what we're talking about here, that we can have a civil discussion and not agree on everything, but that's going away in up here
Everything.
in national government, national politics. But I do think community-wise, we're coming back together.
Well,
I
I agree
hope
with
so.
you. I agree with you, and I think the cannibalism. I mean, we just saw the Speaker of the House. What is that? What
the
hot
hell is
mess
going
was
on?
That right?
I mean, I think my 6-year-old, now she's 9. Oh my gosh. I think she can make better decisions than I think the Congress is just.
Right.
What a nightmare.
Right.
And how the hell have we not kicked them all out?
Right.
If I didn't show up and do my job and just decided, daylight savings time was supposed to be
Yeah.
either going away or here to stay, and because they can't decide what to do, that we just can't make a decision there. Like what? You can't even decide what to do with daylight. It's just signing the
You
paper,
can't even
right?
decide to do it
God,
daylight.
it's to
Right.
me, it's like what a freaking hot mess. I'm
It's a
sorry.
hot
Go
mess.
ahead. Yeah.
No, just
just rolling
I
with
agree
it.
with you.
Yeah.
And I think it's nice. It's really nice to have this conversation with the two of you because I agree that we can sit here and talk about and I could say I would do this and you could say
Yes.
you would do that, and if the rest of the community would start that process of just saying I respect your decision.
Yes.
We're good. Let's have a cocktail. But
exactly.
let's
And it would
at
happen
least do
more,
that.
I think, without so much social media. I think, not having to back it up, not having to sit face to face and take the other aspects of personalities on, and you just know that, they disagree with me here, so they must disagree with everything, and I probably hate them now.
So here's
That's
here's
an
what's interesting. Here's
yeah.
here's something that I'm discovering at school is I teach a social media class, which is very basic. It is and interestingly enough, I've had to make it.
We want to take that one too, Bob, so sign us up.
Well, no, you're already good at it.
Yeah.
You're already you guys already
Yeah, I
have
think
it.
we pride ourselves on that.
Yeah,
That's our-
you've
She's
nailed
good.
that already. But I'm telling you, these students increasingly, so this will be my, let me think, 4th semester of teaching this. So the class is every spring. This will be my 4th time. Increasingly, a larger majority of the class walks in without social media accounts.
Really?
These are 18, 19, 20-year-olds.
That's the hip thing to do.
Well, I think it is.
I think it is too.
I think that's
Especially, should we have a requiem for Twitter? Because my favorite platform, but now it's ruined,
X.
right?
I was never a
I
tweeter.
love Twitter.
And I still can't say X. I mean, I do
X.
it. I'm like,
I
X.
say I'm going to call it Twitter because
Forever. It's
That's
kind
what
of
everybody
weird.
knows.
I can.
Yeah,
And
I mean-
I'm old and I'm going to do it.
So so if you tweet on Twitter, what do you do on X?
Oh,
I swear I just came up with that joke all on my own, and it wasn't even meant to be a joke.
That's good.
It was pretty damn good, but
guess
it has
you
multiple
XXX.
meanings. Yeah, it has multiple meanings. Anyway, but yeah, it's always going to be Twitter, and
yeah, what do you call it?
I call it Twix because I can't figure out.
I love it.
That's good. I
I'm
like
like,
that.
and I'm not on it much because if I were on it, I would just spew every thought, and people would be like, "Oh my God, get this girl off of here." Instead, I spend my time on Facebook, like.
Well,
scrolling.
I'm the one on any social media that I type it out,
delete.
Delete
and then
it.
I go
I do too.
backspace,
I do
backspace,
too.
backspace.
It's called responsibility, man.
Or-
it is.
But sometimes late at
It's
night,
good
I
to
might-
get it.
Sometimes I do hit send,
Yeah.
and then I go, oh,
She's good at it. See, I'm like this.
So bad.
If I'm having a drink and I post something, I always wake up and I'm like, ugh,
right.
why'd I do that? It's like, hide my
have to-
phone. Don't drunk text. Don't
No.
drunk post.
You have to put that in your lizard brain.
Yeah.
That when you drink, your phone is not in your hand,
I
or you
know.
don't get on social.
I
It
need
just
to.
Then I
has
would
to
never
be.
have my phone.
I know, right? Oh, the lizard brain. I like that. Okay, so real quick, can you run through? So schooling to today.
Oh,
You
gosh.
worked
Real
at.
quick.
So just real quick. So you went to school where?
Real quick, I have a lot of years.
You went to school at
Okay.
KM or
So I went to UC Davis,
Okay.
which is out in California, undergrad. Then I went to Mizzou for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Got a master's in journalism there, not to teach, which ironically, I did it because many good mentors said, if you really want to do this, you should go there. So I did that. Came to WGEM. Did the morning show there for 20
gonna
years.
say for a
well,
long, long
no, that's
time.
not true. I started on weekends, did weekends for 2 years, and then left and went to Springfield, Illinois.
Who's your longest running co-host? Interrupting real quick.
Oh my gosh.
Was it less?
putting you on the spot here, sister.
The
Was it
morning.
less?
The longest in the morning.
Or just all together? Just longest.
You know what? I think Tammy O'Neill. Do you guys remember Tammy? She did weather.
Yes.
She was in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I
Remember
remember.
Tammy?
Yeah.
But in the we kind of had to rotate. We had a lot of in and out in the morning. The morning, as Bob alluded to earlier, it's a tough shift.
Yeah.
Yep.
You are
You guys
there.
had a good
You
crew,
get up
though.
at 3 in the morning. It's tough.
Yeah.
And to do that for 20 years, I don't know how I did it. And in all those 20 years, there was only one time where my phone rang and I answered and I said, "What?" And they're like, "Are you gonna come to work today?" And I was like, "Oh."
No, it wasn't a bad dream. It really is
Right.
happening.
Only one time in 20 years. I
Hey,
thought
that's not too bad.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, so
then
WGM.
went to Springfield, worked at WICS there for a year on their morning show.
and that's where you had the makeup.
one
you had to-
time for an event, not the whole time.
I was really thinking we were going to get a makeup person here. Boy, was I
Yeah.
let down. Anyway.
yeah, where I was too.
He's shaking his head no. We'll
Yeah.
just have him put some blush on us. Okay. All right. So then Springfield.
So Springfield for a year, loved it there because of the state capital, and I got to watch my idol there. Molly Hall was the State House reporter, and she was for a competing station. But we would go to the State House, and I mean, I would just sit in the in the curtains and just stare at her and be like, I want to. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to be. But then went out to dinner with someone, and I said, I'm leaving. When I was still in Quincy, went out to dinner. I said, I'm leaving. I got this job in Springfield, and he's like, it's just dinner. Calm down. Like, I'm just asked you to dinner. Like, I'm presumptuous much?
You're like, yeah, I just didn't want you to want to
I
marry
mean-
me and without you knowing.
Because they all did.
Yeah, I know. I feel you,
Eventually,
sister. Yep,
right?
I feel it. Yeah.
So anyway, he ended up, that was the whole story. So then I did come back. It was a 31-year long dinner, right? So, so I did come back, worked in Springfield for a year.
Wait, you married the guy that you went to
yes,
dinner with?
yes.
Oh my gosh, Nora, that is awesome.
So yeah, I was right.
You were right.
I knew it. I knew it
Yeah,
back then.
that's the woman brain.
I knew
it
is.
You had it going.
Isn't it? I was like, oh man, I really shouldn't go to dinner because I have this career thing going on.
Yeah.
But also I was broke, and he was paying. So
You
I
were
was
hungry.
Like, oh, a free meal?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm there. So anyway.
My kind of girl.
Yeah. So that happened, came back. Then I worked on the morning show. So my first stint at WGM was weekends, then turned to morning. 20 years there. There was a brief pause in there. I worked in fundraising for the Arthritis Foundation for a couple of years. So did that. And then got a call from also a former WGEM turned KHQA person who called and said, what are you doing? And I'm like, what are you thinking? And so then went to KHQA. I was not on the air there. So a lot of people don't know that I worked there for 4 years. So went over there, kind of just went into the management ranks and worked there.
I wish we had so much more time. I want to hear the differences, and I want to really dig into this. But so KHQA, didn't you also do something at Harold Wig too?
Well, when you worked for WGM, if they wanted you to write at
Oh,
the
you
Wig,
did? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so I did a column
gotcha.
there for a year or two.
Okay.
And there was something we asked David Adam when he comes back if he enjoyed our process of synergy. So
love that word.
You can hear Bob
Such
laughing.
Yeah.
So we had to. David and I actually, in our respective positions back in the day, had to meet once a day, every day, to synergize and share our stories and say what we were working on and what they were working on at the Wig, because even though we were owned by the same company, we still tried to keep a separation of competitiveness and content generation. And so then the powers that be said, you guys have to work together and figure this out, how this is going to happen. Well, and I'll say it on the air, David was stealing our stories.
David Adam,
where is he? I wish he was here because we could really
don't
talk
worry,
about this.
we'll get him for you.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
He'll deny it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He'll deny it, but
we'll hold him to it.
I know better, and he knows better.
Ooh, we're getting the hot tea today.
I know. It got hot
I
in
love
here.
it. Yes.
Anyway, so that was the thing. So a little bit. It was fun actually working with the Herald Wig, and then I was at KHQA, and then Sinclair, the corporation out of Baltimore, bought KHQA from a company called Barrington, which is from Barrington, Illinois. They went defunct. They sold out, and Sinclair bought all of the Barrington stations. And it was an interesting experience working for Sinclair in a very small market. So things, you could tell what was coming
writing on the
and
wall.
what actually is now happening. So the news is out of Champaign, and again, your listeners and media, people who watch media in town know that that's happening because they know that the news is actually from there. We still have weather and sports from here, thankfully. Rich and Tegan and Chris, so we still have that local talent there. But kind of saw that coming, and then going into education was a little bit accidental because there was a very beloved professor there who passed away suddenly and unexpectedly. And I had worked, then there was another professor there who actually I'd worked with at WGEM. We worked there, and then he went into education years before. And so he called and said, hey, can you help? I got to finish this semester. And they were kind of it was in the middle of a semester. It was very, very sad. And I really couldn't at the time because of the job that I was doing at KHQA. I really couldn't leave during the day.
Right.
Anyway, long story. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. I'm enjoying it.
So then I said, but if it comes to anything, give me a call. If it becomes an open position or something, I'll talk to you about it. So then that summer he called and he said, hey, you want to go out to lunch? And I said, oh, sure. Okay.
The last time you went to dinner, I was gonna say, hey,
it always revolves around a meal.
right?
I shouldn't go
well,
out.
good things tend to happen, so that was
That's
probably
true.
it. That was a good choice.
And everything happens for a reason.
Right?
10 years, that's
10
quite
years.
a long run.
awesome.
It
Same
is.
thing with you. Everything happens for a reason. It's kind of weird how life kind of puts you in places, even if you weren't intending on doing it in the first place.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Here I am too.
See, it is funny how things just kind of turn out. And you have a family, right? You have
Yep.
children, and you want to shout them out real quick?
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah.
They're I've got one in New York, one in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
They're amazing
Okay.
women like the two of you.
Yeah.
They're
I bet they are.
great careers and
Yeah.
wonderful people, and
Excellent.
they're awesome.
Well, they have a great role
women.
model.
Yes,
Yeah.
great women coming from a great woman.
That's right. Well,
what we're
Nora
for.
Baldner, you have been an amazing guest,
you.
and I hope you've enjoyed it.
thoroughly
I
enjoyed
have,
it.
I have really enjoyed it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Girl-
I'm very
girl
impressed
crush.
with what you
I am.
guys are doing, what you have done. Keep
you.
going. Keep going with those FOIAs because
Yes.
that's important.
Thank
you.
know,
It is.
hold everyone to account and
Yeah.
dig up the dirt because
That's what we.
if it's not they're not acting properly, they need to be called out. So
Yes.
good for you.
Nora Baldner,
Yeah.
cheers,
Thank
sister.
you.
You are
Cheers.
badass, and we are
Thank
lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Yes.